So Ash, the Fighters Pass has finally come to an end. We've had Joker, we've had Hero, we've had Banjo-Kazooie, Terry, and now finally Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses. And we've been playing as much Byleth as we can over the last day. And first, I want to know, Ash, what was your reaction to Byleth when you figured out that was the final character in the Fighters Pass?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty disappointed. I wasn't, disappointed. I wasn't angry. I don't think Smash is ever worth getting angry over, just like video games in general. I wasn't mad. I was very happy for the Fire Emblem Three Houses fans out there, although some of them on Twitter kind of clapped back at me saying, hey, we're fans, we didn't want Byleth, we wanted a more interesting character. So it seemed like even Three Houses fans, some of them weren't very happy with the character choice here, but, as I said at the time, Byleth was not, I don't have any personal love for the character. However, to me, any new Smash content is exciting. I may not, Fire Emblem character, yet another one, not my first choice, but still, I always trust in Sakurai to know what he's doing, and for me, any new Smash content, any new character, stage, music, that's always exciting to me. So, was I as hype as I was for, Banjo-Kazooie? Definitely not, but it's still new Smash. It's new Smash stuff, so of course I'm excited because I love Smash.
Hell yeah. And I think what's going to make this discussion kind of interesting is we aren't really Fire Emblem fans, you and I. We played a few of the games, but neither of us have really played Three Houses. So unlike other characters in the Fighters Pass who we're all fairly familiar with, Byleth isn't one that we're really attached to. But with that being said, I love Byleth, man. I've been playing her all I say her. I mean, I mean the female alt.
Same. I think when I do play Byleth, like when I recorded the classic mode run for the channel yesterday, I played female Byleth because it's kind of like, it's a little different from Corrin, right? Because with male Corrin, he's insufferable. It's not like he's just kind of boring. He's awful. And female Corrin is just so much cooler. But with Byleth, I just think the female design's cooler, but I don't dislike male Byleth.
Oh no, they're all pretty good designs, and I love that they have the house leaders as alts as well.
That's so cool.
I specifically love the Edelgard ult because it actually kind of looks like her. I feel like a lot of Smash alternate costumes kind of miss the mark in some areas where they're clearly meant to be a character, but you don't really feel like them. Whereas with these color rolls, I feel like they've gone the distance to really try and capture what they should be like. And I think you were even saying that some of the animations were slightly different depending on the costume you had on.
Well, by gender, so not necessarily the alt, like not the costume, but yeah. So if you, I was the one who recorded the victory animations for the channel, and I did them like male 1, female 1, male 2, female 2 on purpose because they actually do have slight posing differences between them, depending on whether you're playing as male or female Byleth, which I think is not the first time that Smash has done this. I think that also happened with Pokemon Trainer, perhaps, but it is really cool to see Sakurai kind of doing that with this DLC character. And, even though they are the same broad character, they have little posing differences between them, at least in their victory animations.
It feels like they put so much effort into all of the DLC. I love that Joker's ending animation properly goes into a Persona 5 victory screen. And I think that extends to Fire Emblem, because every other Fire Emblem character has the same winning jingle. But the Three Houses ones, well, as in Byleth, have an actual Fire Emblem Three Houses theme at the end. So it feels like with all this DLC, they've really put their A game into this to deliver something that stands out from the rest of the game. And we'll discuss more about the entire Fighters Pass down the line in another discussion. But I feel like all of the fighters from the Fighters Pass, to me, have made Ultimate into a different game. When it came out, it was bursting with content, of course. But it was also a compilation of everything Smash has been with a couple of extras. Whereas the DLC has given us so many new ways to play. Every character has sort of redefined what Smash can be, and they've changed what the game is really. Every single time there's a new character introduced, you have to change how you approach them. And Byleth is no different. Byleth is scary.
Yes. She can be, yeah. No, I do want to mention this really quickly just because I know we'll get grilled in the comments if I don't. Robin, Lucina, and Chrom actually do have their own Fire Emblem Awakening victory jingle that's separate from Marth and Roy and such. So I didn't want to get grilled for that in the comments. So yes, we are aware. Don't worry. But no, it's Byleth can be dangerous. When I first started playing Byleth, I tweeted out man, they seem like a lot of fun, but I don't know how viable some of their moves are going to be in 1v1 because she's a slow character, right? Or they are a slow character, especially with moves like their down B, and their charged neutral special. I'm like, how are you ever going to land either of those on anyone who knows what they're doing in a 1v1 format? But as I then went to, I follow a bunch of pro smashers on YouTube, so of course every time a new character comes out, I'm just waiting with bated breath for them to, release all their videos. So, I was watching Zero's video and a few others, and, I very quickly realized that if you can bait people into attacking you when you set up your down B, that thing has crazy amounts of super armor. So
absolutely,
it is so easy to forget that you're not going to flinch Byleth out of that attack. And thus, it just demolishes you. And I think if it hits your shield, it's an instant shield break, period.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
The thing is, Byleth basically has 2 shield breaker attacks. So the standard special where you fire your bow, if it's fully charged and someone has held their shield down for maybe like a second, it's going to break their shield.
Yeah.
So Byleth has 2 attacks, both long range and short range, which can break your shield. And what's great about breaking a shield is you can punish it with Byleth's down B straight afterwards. And if your opponent's like above 50%, that's an instant kill. So Byleth's attacks are quite slow, but if they hit hard.
Well, and especially, if you're a Jigglypuff main, you don't ever want to go up against Byleth if you're a Jigglypuff main, because as we all know, if Jigglypuff shield breaks, that's an instant KO for it. So then, of course, again, I guess you could also turn that on its tables, or turn the tables on that and say, well, but Byleth has to be stationary in order to bring out that attack, so if you can bait that out, then you can get a good rest in. So I guess it could go either way, but in general, I don't think I want to play Jigglypuff against Byleth ever.
Yeah, and I think because Byleth is quite slow, that sort of seems like a detriment to the character. But she sort of makes up for it with other moves, though, with so many long-range moves. Like there's the spear, of course, on your slash attacks, which they're not only is it a very powerful attack, but it reaches, I think, further than even Simon and Richter's whip, which just speaks to the range on this
I don't think I
thing.
realized that.
Right, I think it's just a bit longer.
Wow, okay, so does that still... I guess that still leaves Mega Man's Char Shot a little longer in terms of reach, I would think, right?
I suppose so, yeah.
Probably a little bit longer, but again, that's also, there's a lot of in-lag on that, and yeah, I don't know... There actually might be less in-lag on Byleth's Forward Smash than there is Mega Man's, actually.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I went into with Byleth was I wasn't entirely sure how this character was going to differentiate itself from other Fire Emblem characters, because of course there's 8 at this point, and we have a few different ones, like Ike is extremely different to Marth, and of course Robin is extremely different to the other ones too, and as is Corrin. But I think a lot of people group them together because they are all swordsmen. But Byleth can change her weapon depending on what direction you're pushing the attack in. And that can change up your approach drastically. Like, if you want to just stay from the distance and fire your bow, you can. If you want to get up close and personal with your sword, you can. And there's different moves that sort of, I guess, not only change like what character you're facing, but can also change the your positioning. So I was fighting against a Sonic main earlier, and because Sonic's fast and Byleth is slow, it's extremely hard to get a hit in. So what I was doing was just these huge long-range attacks with my bow, and then following up with the down B, because it has so much super armor on it. And that was basically the only way I could really hit Sonic. But there's also defensive attacks, though, like your side B. Isn't very effective as an offense, but it's like this giant swoop which takes out anything in the air. So whenever Sonic came close with his homing attack, I could just stop him. Like, it's not really for dealing damage, but it's a great way to just sort of have crowd control over the character.
Well, and from what I've seen in videos and such, it's a great edge guarding tool as well. Like, I had been messing around with side B, just playing it myself, and I could perceive that it seemed like it would be, potentially good for edge guarding, but apparently it's great based on how I've seen it used. So, yeah, maybe not for, it's not purely for ground-based offense, and it doesn't dish out a lot of damage, but, in the air, as you said, it's a great anti-air tool and great for edge guarding. So, Byleth just seems to have a lot of options at their disposal at any given moment, which I think makes up for the fact that they're pretty slow, and I think it would be problematic if they were fast. I've seen some people saying, "Oh, well, Byleth feels too slow and chunky. They could be a little faster." Well, do they need to be faster though? Because they've got range and power on their side already, and I don't know if you need to speed that up very much.
Not really. I like in one of our conversations before this discussion, I liken Byleth to like a light Ganondorf. Like They have very similar move speeds, but Ganondorf's heavy and Byleth is light. So it's sort of it's a different sort of territory for Smash. We have a long-range, slow-moving but light fighter, which I don't think has really been covered before. And it's just giving like a new dimension to the core game. And honestly, I feel like Byleth is my favorite Fire Emblem character in Smash. I can't think of any other one that's given me this much enjoyment.
Okay, well, I mean, I definitely have to put more time into the character. For me, it's difficult because, and I know you certainly understand this too. When I'm going to play a character a lot in Smash, I'm going to main them or have them in my main rotation. I have to care about that character in their own game. And as we said, neither of us are huge Fire Emblem fans, and I want to play Three Houses. I'm not against it. It's just a matter of I just don't really, A, I don't care about the character in their own game yet, and B, they're an avatar character, which I've always found difficult to care about anyway, because it's supposed to be you insert yourself into the character, and I know they have their own personality in the Three Houses, but it just doesn't seem, even talking to other Three Houses fans, they're like, oh man, but, Edelgard or Claude or Dimitri would have been so much more interesting from a character standpoint. So it is difficult for me to get too excited about playing a ton of Byleth just because I don't care about the character themselves. However, they do seem like a lot of fun to play, and I don't know if I'm ready to say they're my favorite yet, because I really do still enjoy playing Ike. Ike has always been one of my favorite Fire Emblem characters to play, especially in Ultimate. I love the way he feels in this game. And I also enjoy Corrin, but Byleth is definitely going to be a character I keep playing. I don't ignore any character in Smash except for Wario, because it's Wario. But but no, I mean, this is certainly going to be a character I keep playing. And hey, I didn't think I was going to be a big fan of playing Terry when he came out, and I play him constantly now. I go back to him often. So
he's so fun.
I could see the same. I could see the same happening with Byleth, just maybe not quite as quickly. But I do. It's I guess hard because it's not necessarily the kind of character I'd normally play in terms of it being kind of a tanky, slower moving character. That's just not really my style. One of the reasons I love Mega Man is because he is a heavy who plays like a light, fast character. So, Byleth just in general isn't my cup of tea in terms of how they play, but they seem to have some really interesting tools. And one thing I was going to mention was that I think Byleth is the first character to officially incorporate footstooling as part of their official moveset. That up B, yeah. I don't know if it's a true combo, but I was messing around with up throw into up B, and at least at high percentages, that's an instant spike, but again, you might be able to DI out of it, you might be able to air dodge out of it. I don't know if it's a true combo, but that up B where you can spike off of people, or at least bounce off of people, is it's just cool to look at, it feels great to do, and there's no other character in Smash who can do it like that.
And it really punishes those who are trying to spike you. If they're going for a kill when you're trying to recover, you can just go straight onto them and reverse the entire situation.
Right.
Yeah, it's just another way that Byleth sort of changes the dynamics of play. And back into what Byleth means as a character. When Corrin came out in Smash 4, I played Corrin a little bit, but I gotta say, I think Corrin's my least played DLC fighter of all of them.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't really connect with the character. Whereas Byleth has taken me back to the early days of Smash, where I'd play a character I'm not familiar with and want to learn more about them. So right now, I have a copy of Three Houses on my desk, and I'm ready to play it. This character has just got me to the point where I want to play Three Houses, and it's been a long time since Smash has done that, because I'm familiar with the character before they get into Smash, but with this one, I just want to know more about them. So it's done its job, on selling me on Three Houses.
Well, and that's certainly done that in my case with the music, because as I said before, one of my favorite things about each new DLC pack is the music that's added, especially for games that I didn't get a chance to play. So Fire Emblem Three Houses, I did get a chance to play it last year. Now I know just in general that Fire Emblem music is amazing. I've listened to a ton of it. I listen to it constantly. But I just hadn't listened to Three Houses music. So, of course, last night I'm having the best time going through the songs they added and then going to YouTube and discovering what they didn't add and what didn't make the cut. And what did make the cut is just as amazing as what didn't make the cut is tragic. Because there's this one song, God Shattering Star, that is one of the final map themes in Three Houses. And I'm just sitting there, how did this song not make it into Smash? But, of course, I think it's kind of the same deal with Twilight of the Gods from Echoes, where the loop is 8 minutes, so it's just not
sure.
It's not a great fit for Smash, which are usually the matches don't go that long. But man, I want to play Three Houses now, even more than I did, just because of this music. I'm like, I just need to. So that is what's gotten me, interested in playing Three Houses even more than Byleth themselves. Although I would really love to have the context for that character in their own game too.
Speaking of music, though, it is a little odd that the only remix is of the main theme. There are no other new remixes for Smash. Right. Which, I guess coming into it not being a Three Houses fan isn't so bad, because we're sort of hearing these tunes, not necessarily for the first time, but in the context of a game for the first time. Right. And I think one of the reasons there probably aren't new remixes is because these songs already sound amazing. They are all so good. Which
is, and it's a shame you can't. You could say the same about Dragon Quest in the sense that I don't think there were any remixes for that either. If when Yggdrasil's Altar came out, but unfortunately we got like half orchestrated and half synthesized versions of that, and you can't make that argument for Dragon Quest music. Like, it doesn't sound, some of it doesn't sound good right out of the gates. But I think with Fire Emblem you can. It's like, no, these don't necessarily need, rearranging from what they already are, unless you just want to get new material in there. So I would have liked to see a couple of more rearrangements for sure, but the one that is there, it's really good.
It's so good. I found myself just listening to the main theme repeatedly recently. Ever since Byleth was announced, I've just been listening to, is it Edge of Time or...
Edge of Dawn?
That's called. Edge of Dawn, that's the one.
Edge of Dawn, yeah. It's great.
It's so good, yeah.
And I love that it's like Fire Emblem. I don't think even hardcore Fire Emblem fans probably didn't see it coming, but Edge of Dawn is like Fire Emblem flirting with electronic dance music-esque vibes, which I think is the coolest thing, because you wouldn't expect that. You wouldn't expect those two to cross over, but I think it works really well, and I'd like to see them try it again in another theme song in the future.
So before we move on to other aspects of Byleth, how do you feel this character fits in as a gimmick in the Fighter's Pass? Because, of course, Joker has Arsene, and you've got Banjo with Kazooie, which I guess sort of has the, what's the side B called? The
Wonder Wing.
Wonder Wing, of course, yeah.
Yeah, Wonder Wing.
And then you've got Terry, who has another attack, which no other character has. And you've got Hero with a bunch of different commands. So what do you think makes Byleth special?
I definitely do think Byleth is the most traditional feeling of all the Smash characters in the Fighter's Pass, in the Fighter's Pass Volume 1. I think it's pretty, they do have their own shtick, but I think that they definitely feel like they have the most, roots in terms of a just traditional Smash character in terms of what they can do. But I do think you kind of touched on it earlier already, whereas Byleth fills a slot that Smash has never seen before, which is like this light-ish character that plays like a heavy, like kind of like a lighter, slightly more mobile Ganondorf. And I don't think we've really seen something quite like that. And there's also, of course, the fact that depending on which direction you're pushing in, you get a different weapon. Although I think it's kind of easier to kind of just wave that off as being part of their moveset and not necessarily a gimmick. So
maybe. I think we've got to give that some credit, though, because there isn't really another character that works like that. Like you can completely change your range depending on the attack you're using.
No, that's a good point.
And we've been asking for like other Fire Emblem classes for years now. Like we've been wanting Axe Fighters and Lance Fighters, and we've got it here, just all in one character.
That's true, and and other than Wonder Wing, I think you could also probably make the argument that Banjo-Kazooie possibly fills that traditional Smash character role, maybe even more than Byleth, other than that Wonder Wing element, which of course you do always have to watch out for, and no other character has something quite like it. So, I guess I could go back and forth between the two, but I do think the one thing that really does set Byleth apart, though, is the footstool element. The fact that this is the first character that I can remember right now in this moment that has footstooling incorporated as part of their actual moveset. And as you were saying, that completely changes the offstage dynamics, because as a Mega Man main, I go for spikes often with that hard knuckle, and I now know playing against Byleth that if I'm also at high percent, I can't go for that spike and be safe because I will get spiked instead. Now if I'm at low percent, I'll be fine because I'll just get I'll pop up and not get spiked, but still that completely changes the offstage game in a way that no other character does.
For sure, yeah. And I guess one thing with Byleth as well is Byleth has fantastic vertical recovery, but awful horizontal recovery.
Right.
So when you use Byleth's recovery, you gain basically no height, and the only way to really recover is to latch onto the edge. But if you're so far from the stage, you're basically doomed. There isn't really a way to get back there. Unless, I guess, you latch on with a footstool.
Yeah, a footstool, or I mean, you can also, do what everyone else can do, which is kind of air dodge, just back to the ledge to get that slight bit of horizontal movement, but that's not going to cut it a lot of the time. So it's interesting because Little Mac kind of has the same problem, but at least has his side B to try and recover. Whereas Byleth, I haven't heard too many people complain about their recovery yet, but, talking about it here, it is true. Their horizontal recovery is really bad, although I guess, the thing is, they really make up for that with the fact that they can bounce off of other characters to get back to the stage, assuming they're there.
It makes it tricky to see where Byleth is going to sit in the competitive scene like months from now, because there are lots of compromises to Byleth, but there's also so many strengths.
Right.
So I wonder if people are gonna take so much advantage of those strengths that the weaknesses aren't gonna matter so much. But it's always great when there's a fighter which, they seem really powerful at first, but if you know how to take them on, then there's definitely weaknesses to them. And You can see that with basically all the DLC characters, I feel. Even Joker, who was... Actually, I think Joker was actually debuffed greatly in the patch.
He was, actually. The patch in general, I think, really directly answered a few concerns about who are, currently considered the most powerful characters, like Joker and Palutena, who both got nerfed considerably in this patch from what I understand going over the patch notes, which for Joker, I think he really needed it. He's nowhere near something like, Brawl Meta Knight or Melee, Fox, Falco, Sheik, whatever, in terms of being that domineering. But, Arsene used to stay out way too long in 1v1 matches, and it seems like they've tried to address that now, which I think is a good thing. Same with Palutena, I don't think her Nair combos as well as it used to, and stuff like that, but... Byleth, I think, like you said, I'm curious to see where they shake out in the competitive scene. Although, have you seen Zero's video on Byleth yet?
I haven't, no.
Okay, because I was watching a little bit of that today, and he opens with a Twitter video of Ryuga playing Byleth. Ryuga is another Pro Smash player. And I don't know exactly what Ryuga did, I have to go back and look into it more, but... he was pulling off some Bayonetta-type nonsense where he would up B and he was basically popping DK off the stage by repeatedly up Bing and comboing DK off the top of the stage. So I'm a little scared just seeing that, thinking, oh my god, are we seeing the return of Smash 4 Bayonetta? But as you said, so many people tend to overreact to new characters when they're released. I mean, I'll never forget, everything about Hero, which was just the most ridiculous. And people now seem to agree that he's not OP at all, even close. But, that was the thought when he first came out. So I think it's important that we wait and see about Byleth. But I was watching some pro videos of Byleth play, and it does seem like they have some pretty ridiculous stuff they can do in terms of kill confirms and, true combos and such. But, it's been a day. So it's way too soon.
In my time online, I found some great counter Byleth characters. I was playing against the Palutena. And that counter can basically wash out any of Byleth's moves.
Oh,
so if you're using the bow, it can just hit it straight back at you. If you're using the down B, again, straight back at you. There's no real move that they can't reflect. So Palutena is a great counter to Byleth. As is Sonic, he's just so fast that most of the moves are hard to charge up in time. So any fast character or a character with a counter can take Byleth down pretty easily, I feel.
Yeah, and I could see Banjo-Kazooie doing pretty well against Byleth as well, because they can just even if you get caught with Byleth's down B, you can just Wonder Wing through it. So, assuming Wonder Wing takes priority, which I believe it should, even though Byleth wasn't out at the time, the whole thing about Wonder Wing is that it's got the highest priority, or quite near it, of any attack in the entire game.
But yeah, I mean, Byleth, I'm having a lot of fun with Byleth at the moment, and I can't wait to see how that continues on over the next couple of months. But I've stuck with all the DLC characters so far, and I feel like they've done such a good job just putting them all together. They feel like they were always there, and they just change up the game so much. No, I mean, so much. And I have found in a funny way with Hero, like you were talking about how Byleth has made you want to play Three Houses more. It kind of worked in the reverse for me with Hero, where when Hero came out, I hadn't started playing Dragon Quest XI that much yet, so I didn't really care all that much, even though I respected the character. And I found them fun to play, so I would just play Erdrick. I'd play the Dragon Quest III Hero. But now, as you and Derek know, Dragon Quest XI S has become one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. I now play Hero so much more often, and not just Hero. I can only play the Luminary. I can't play Erdrick or any of the other heroes anymore. I have to play the Luminary because
that's that Smash effect, right? It's just it's the Smash effect of either Smash makes you want to go play the game the character is from, or you're already playing the game the character is from, which makes you want to go back and just play as them even more in Smash. It's something that only Smash can do, and it's a very special dynamic.
I was the same. So prior to Hero releasing, my only Dragon Quest game was Dragon Quest VIII, so I only played as 8.
Right.
And now I don't exclusively play Luminary, but I sort of swap between the two far more often than I would do. But yeah, when you're more familiar with that character, then it clicks with you. It makes you feel like you want to play as them, not just from a gameplay perspective, but because you understand their legacy as well.
Exactly, which is, one reason I want to, other than the music, one reason I really want to go check out Three Houses is so I can have more, appreciation for Byleth in the context of their own game. And not just Byleth, but also Garreg Mach Monastery. This is a stage that it's not necessarily the most eye-opening stage of the DLC in terms of it does something crazy new or different, but it's fun. I like that it's kind of like a new Delfino Plaza-esque stage where it's a walk-off at certain points, and there are no real hazards, but it's a traveling stage that kind of changes itself up every little bit, every little while. And I've been finding it a lot of fun, and I want to, enjoy this stage in the context of knowing what it's like in its own game.
I didn't expect it to transition quite as often as it does.
It is a little fast.
I feel like the transitions last, 30 seconds?
Maybe, if that, sometimes.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives a stage its own pace, which is nice. And, none of the 4 areas in Garreg Mach Monastery are not fun to play in my opinion. So, even though it's not like a stage like Mementos, which really is memorable in a visual sense, or like the King of Fighters Stadium, which does something that literally no other Smash stage has before, it's still a lot of fun in that kind of Yggdrasil's Altar, Spiral Mountain type, format where it's like, okay, we've seen a stage like this before, but it's kind of its own take on it, and it's got its own music. And in terms of the music, I don't know about you, but I actually decided to treat Garreg Mach Monastery like the other DLC stages, because I had forgotten going into it, like, oh wait, this isn't a new franchise to Smash. This music is being added to every Fire Emblem stage, but I don't want to hear old Fire Emblem music in this DLC stage. I only want to hear the new music in this stage. So I turned off all the other music except for setting the rates for the new songs in Garreg Mach.
Good idea. I haven't done that, but I totally should.
Yeah.
I played Three Houses for maybe 2 hours for a preview stream, and in that time I explored this place for a while. And I, of course, haven't had the experience of someone who's properly played the game, but I will say, in that time, it was cozy. And
was
I can
nice?
See, if you're a big Three Houses fan, I can totally see that exploring these places in the context of Smash, I can see that bringing back that cozy feeling. Because it is just recreating these areas that you spent so many hours in. And it also has all the house leaders and all the other students in the background. So it just feels like great fan service to those who have really enjoyed Three Houses.
Yeah, and I mean, even though the initial appearance of another Fire Emblem character in Smash maybe wasn't the best out of the gate, now that Byleth is here, sure, are there a ton of other characters I would have preferred and picked first? Absolutely. But the fact that Byleth is here and can feel so fresh and can bring content that feels fresh, despite being the 8th Fire Emblem character added to Smash, I think is really impressive. Sakurai did a great job making this character feel new and not just expected. Like, oh, it's a Fire Emblem character, they're going to play like this, and it's just more Fire Emblem music and stuff. Like, no, this feels like a fresh addition to the game, and in hindsight, it makes me glad now that we have Three Houses representation in Smash, only for that music, if nothing else. But again, Byleth does add a dynamic to the game that no other character does with their offstage game and the footstooling. So I think that Byleth has been a really meaningful addition, probably more so than the quote-unquote anime swordsman crowd felt like they were going to be when they were first announced. But, I've never had a problem with anime swordsmen or however many there are in the game. Who cares? If the character's fun to play, they're fun to play, and I definitely think Byleth is fun to play.
Yeah. Fire Emblem's in a weird position where I feel like every game sort of redefines itself, and Three Houses feels like it was just... It made such a big impact.
Yeah.
When that game released, Twitter was just full of Three Houses and nothing else, and it kind of still is. I'm always seeing Three Houses art.
No, it's had a huge impact.
For sure. And because Fire Emblem basically has new characters with each iteration, I think it makes more sense to add characters from that franchise. Like, I'd love more Zelda characters. I'd love Impa to be a character.
Yeah.
But that being said, the primary Zelda cast is more or less the same every time. Whereas with Fire Emblem, I feel like they can sort of justify adding another character because that's a new primary character. Whereas with Zelda, you'd have to go for a secondary, which I would be fine with. But I also think it makes sense to just sort of focus on these characters, though.
I think Fire Emblem's problem is visual and not so much in a I don't think people are against the idea of having more Fire Emblem characters in general. It's really about the visual element, and you at the end of the day, no matter how different these characters are, you can't get away from the fact that most of them do look way too similar to be interesting, to be an interesting addition to the roster in that sense. Marth and Lucina look almost exactly like both versions of Byleth, who also look like Chrom. It's that navy blue, teal blue hairstyle that the Fire Emblem protagonists seem to love to have. And again, that doesn't make the characters bad, but for the layperson, from the outside looking in, if you're not really into these characters and know who they are and know what they can do, they just look like 5 different versions of the same character, even if they're not actually. And I think that's where the real problem lies, is that despite having 8 characters, there isn't a lot of visual diversity among those characters. So I think if we had 8 Fire Emblem characters and they were all completely different, like we had a couple of sword users and that looked different, we had some axe users, some lance users, and some mage type characters like Robin, I think people would complain about a lot less. I think it's the fact that we got Marth, and then we got Lucina, and we got Chrom, and even Roy, he has red hair, but he still looks pretty similar to the others. You got Byleth. I think it's a visual thing for Fire Emblem.
You're right. And if there were a Fire Emblem fighting game, I think they could get really diverse. They could go into so many classes and sub-characters. But with Smash, you have to focus on the primary characters. So it would be weird to get some just random unit who isn't a main character, or even just not the main character. That's what it's got to be, really. Awakening goes a bit further in, but Chrom and Lucina and Robin, they're all essentially the main character. Whereas it's harder to do that with 3 houses when there's 3 different house leaders. Who do you go with? Because as Sakurai said in the presentation, they reflect differently on people's playthroughs.
Exactly, and even if Edelgard is the internet's favorite, which she does seem to be, I mean, you can't. That discounts all the Dimitri and Claude fans out there who would get completely shafted if Edelgard was the one who was chosen. Is it Edelgard? I'm not sure, but
I think
either way,
Edelgard.
Edelgard. Okay, so yeah, and I think that's the problem is who do you go with if not the one of the 3 house leaders, and you don't want to disappoint fans of as Sakurai said, as you were saying. There are people who bought Fire Emblem 3 Houses who maybe never didn't even look at one of the routes, or 2 of the routes, and only played one and put it down and called it a day. If you choose a character other than the route you played with, or played through, then that's just completely ignoring that part of your audience. So I do think that even though visually Byleth isn't all that interesting next to the rest of the Fire Emblem cast in Smash, it was the choice that made the most sense and was definitely the safest in terms of not disappointing a lot of people. Ironically, it kind of, if you think about it.
Right, well, I've been really enjoying Byleth, and it sounds like you are too, maybe for different reasons, but do you think that you're going to jump into 3 houses after spending time with Byleth?
I want to. Again, the main problem for me is time. I'm just about to finish Dragon Quest XI-S, and I've sunk about 150 hours into that game, if not more. Just because I've done literally everything you can do in Act 3, and, I don't have a lot of time to spend on super long games. So now that I'm wrapping up this super long game, I don't know if I'm quite ready to take on another 100-plus hour game, although it has been expressed to me that if I only want to play one route, that's 50 hours, which is doable, but I don't really want to go in knowing I'm only going to play a quarter of the game, So I want to play it, especially for that music, because I really want to hear it in context. I just, I don't know where I'm going to find the time, but it's definitely not a desire issue. I really want to play it.
That's partially why I'm not thirsty for a direct, because I'm fine just playing the games I already have. I've got way too many games. Anyway, I think we're going to be discussing the entire Fighters Pass over the next couple of days, just going through our thoughts on each of the new characters they've added. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and of course be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for a lot more on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye. Byleth.